Before I became disabled from a chronic illness, I had an active life and a successful career, and I truly believed that the honorable way to live one's life was to accomplish as much as you can and to distinguish yourself. And when I became so sick that I couldn't function in the world outside my house anymore, I realized that by the world's standards, I no longer had any value. As time went on, I became unable to do even the simplest things, and no one realized that I needed help. Life became a real nightmare. And finally, I realized that in spite of my resistance, I had to ask for help. And the people who came forward at that point were actually mostly people that I barely knew, some of whom I'd never even met before. While many of my former friends dropped away, now I know that friends are those who are there for you, whether or not you know them. Meanwhile, I started the difficult process of locating and applying to state and local agencies for the disabled. I was often turned down because the agencies made clerical errors and so on, and I had to be very persistent. And even so, I learned that basic services do not always exist. And through all of this, I realized that in every community there must be a great many people like me, and that anyone who has no family and is shut in and isolated may not be getting their most basic needs met. I knew a woman with a chronic illness who, despite repeated requests for help, received very little, and in her desperation, she lost hope and took her own life. I also was told of an elderly disabled woman who lived in her reclining chair 24 hours a day with a towel under her because she couldn't get to the bathroom. And she had a friend who'd come in once a day to change the towel and open a can of cold food and put it beside her on a table. And that was all the care she got. And yet that woman, for some reason, was not eligible for her state's home nursing care program. I often hear people say, I want to help, but I just can't go to Africa or India. Well, we don't have to go to a third world country to find people who are in desperate need. They're right here in our own communities. And there are an awful lot more of them than we might guess, and we don't see them because they're shut in, and so they're invisible to us. We just don't know they're there. It's easy to assume that people whose basic needs are not being met are to blame for their own situations. I often hear it said that we all have equal opportunities and no excuses, and it's just not true. What people need is not our judgment. People don't choose to be in dire need. They need our compassion, not just empathy, but action. Mahatma Gandhi said, the famous quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." That means we can't expect others to do what we know should be done. You have to take action and do it yourself, or nothing will change. We must learn to become our brother's keepers. Throughout my life, I continually sought for meaning, for sense of fulfillment, and I found how close and available that opportunity is. When I look back on how complacent I was before I got sick, thinking that all disabled, elderly, and shut-in people have the help they need, I remember how easy it was to go through my life with a clear conscience. But everything changed for me, and now that I am aware, I'll never be complacent again. I want to be an example that shows people you can do the right thing regardless of your circumstances. I refuse to let my physical disability and my financial situation prevent me from helping others. Now, I know how powerful one person can be, and I know this from experience. But imagine what a team of people can do. With this in mind, I started an organization called Communities for Compassion, whose purpose is to provide practical assistance by volunteer teams. Communities for Compassion aims to hasten the realization that all our brothers and sisters are equally valuable and deserving, no matter what our circumstances, and that helping others enhances our lives and takes us one step closer to creating a world that cares.